children in the temple of God, children in church, children during the Holy Sacrifice. That's actually, I found a little article on the Old Believers, the Russian Old Believers website from Russia. Of course, it's in English. This is an auto translation. Look at the cute little kids there standing in church. And if you don't know who the Old Believers are or the Old Ritualists, they originated when the Patriarch of Russia, Nikon, I believe, in the 18th century or so, wanted to change in very minor ways the ritual of the Byzantine usage of the Russian church. Why? He said, well, let's conform our usage with that of Greece. Because, Greece is the mother church, so obviously their way of doing things are more ancient than ours. Well, it wasn't really that true. It was actually the Russian way. They maintained the tradition more than the Greeks. So, for example, they changed the way Jesus is spelled. They changed the blessing, how you bless, like the traditional Byzantine or traditional Russian Old Believers would bless in this manner, with the two fingers and these three together. And that's the tradition, and that's meant to be Jesus Christ. And actually, if you look at, even Paul VI and Pius XII, they would bless a lot of time like this, or sometimes like that. So, and of course, they changed it to, well, let's do it the Greek way of doing it that way, or when you cross yourself, instead of crossing with the two fingers like that, well, they would go the other way, or they would do it with the three fingers like this to symbolize the Trinity. These are the innovations which the Old Believers, of course, they're all peasants, uneducated, but the faith is transmitted by the liturgy, as I've always said a billion times in these videos on the channel. The law of prayer is the law of belief. How you pray forms your understanding, your belief. So right away, you're telling people, their argument is, you're telling us to do this. Tobacco pinchers, they call it. Oh, you're telling us we're crossing ourselves with the Trinity? So you're telling us, instead of the two natures, Jesus Christ himself, he's on the cross. So we're crossing ourselves because it is Jesus who is crucified, the incarnate God. But now you're telling us to make the sign of the cross with three fingers. So you're telling us the Father was crucified and the Holy Spirit was crucified. The Trinity was crucified. So for them, this is heresy. It is heresy, of course. But it shows you how the interconnection between this minor, what we might think, oh, it's just a minor change, but no big deal, has significant theological understanding and consequences. So anyways, they split from the official church. They were murdered, martyred, massacred for them to wanting to simply maintain the tradition they've had for 800 years. So, and their status these days is, you have the semi-Protestant, basically, who say that's it. There are no more priests, no more bishops. They're just home alone Christians doing all the rituals without, of course, communion, without baptism, without nothing. So they're living on a book. They're living off of a book. So unfortunately, this is the status of a big part of them. Then you have the ones who are priestly, so with bishops and priests, and that's one of their websites, is I can't remember their patriarch there in Russia and Moscow, and then there are other splinter groups. But in any case, so I kind of feel bad. I mean, it's such a stupid move that it caused such a division for nothing. Okay, fine. You guys want to do the change, and what again? That's to see. It was not. It's like Vatican. It's like what Paul VI did. It's like the Novus Ordo. It came from on high, from on top, onto the people. So instead of having now we have the Sedevacantists and other independent priests and all that, that stuff. Instead of letting people worship as they have always been. No, let's impose it from on top. We're more educated now. Oh, the Greeks did it, so the Greeks, they go like this, so we gotta go like this. We can't do it like we did for 900 years like that, so we can't do it. We gotta follow the Greeks. So, oh no, we gotta go to the original sources in the Novus Ordo, which is a bunch of lies, bunch of garbage, to see how the early Christians worshipped. Again, bunch of garbage. They made up their own stuff to make it to change the faith. So yeah, it came on from on high. So this is the status. But so I really have a great, and I did a video on the Old Believers previously about some of the prayers and how they match actually the traditional Roman rite, because they all originate from the apostles. Anyways, so let's look at this. It's a very short, like a few words, but I just wanted to mention it because it affects us. It affects how you go to church. Kids are running around. Kids are finicky. People are bringing toys and cars and plushies for their children, water bottles, and food, snacks in church. Like if you're going to the Novus Ordo, it's like 45 minutes, an hour max. You got to eat and snacks and toys and iPads and whatnot in church. And not only that, even in traditional parishes, which is surprising for me actually, since I attend one, I see adults, not only children, but adults, having their water bottle in church, and they're just sipping on their water bottle. Like, unless you're diseased or sick or something, you have zero excuse for that. Can't you last an hour or hour and a half without drinking water? What happened to fasting? That's another thing. So people forgot what is the Eucharistic fast. The Eucharistic fast was no water, no food. Medicine was accepted from midnight before until you go to, say, Sunday Mass, and after Mass, then you can drink and eat and be merry. But before then, you fasted off of water and food until Pius XII during World War II or something reduced as only for those who are in need, say soldiers, the requirement for fast to only 3 hours. And he accepted water. So it's okay, fine, you can drink water too. So, and this exception, he still said, well, I hope you still maintain the old tradition, because that's the tradition, East and West actually. And so people forgot about fast. And of course, Paul VI basically abolished the fast. Any fast. He says, 1 hour before communion. So, well, as I say a billion times, I can go and have a double, triple burger with fries and a drink. And by the time I head to church, if I'm driving half an hour, 40 minutes, okay, well, that's an hour. Oh, I'm fasted. I fasted for the Eucharist. That's not fasting. Anyways, so let's look at the article. So it says here, it is important to introduce a Christian to the temple of God from a young age. But when visiting church with a child, there are several important points to remember. And that's very important. Like for me, when I was growing up, I always had I grew up in the Middle East, so we had various churches. We had different, Byzantine church, a Latin, of course it was Novus Ordo when I was born, church, Chaldeans. So we had different churches, and from when I was young, I was always taught, this is God's house. Be quiet, be reverent, God is there. So you teach that to the children, and they will grow up to appreciate it. It's not a playhouse. It's not a place you can run and chat. It is not a place to bug your parents all the time. So yeah, you have to teach your children from they're young. So here it says, children must adhere to the same rules as adults. no talking, no walking, no running around the church. So, and so, yeah, they have to adhere to the same rules of adults. That's how I've always hated and did not appreciate children's liturgy, their special children's mass, where, I don't know, dumbed down masses. Not, they already dumbed down Novus Ordo. Now they dumb it even down for more for the children to make them understand. Yeah, well, it's a play date then. It's not this awe-inspiring mystery, this magic, this mystery slash magic which is in front of them, with chant and incense and something which is different, something special. Children understand what is special and what is not special. That's why they're impressed with like these fantasy Disney movies, like which are, oh, you know, look at the fairies and the whatever. They want something sacred. Kids understand. And when I was a kid, you see the candles back here. And that's the church next to our house. It was a Chaldean church, which are the Iraqi Christians. But they had the Latin, well, which is actually it was in French. It's a French Novus Ordo Mass, as well was said over there. So, but anyways, you had your candles, and even the Byzantine church had these type of candles. So you take the actual candle, you light it, and you put it into the sand, into the kind of a base of sand, in front of icons, in front of statues. Again, other things which are, you teach kids reverence, is lighting candles. And the other thing which is in the West you don't do, but in the East is done, is you actually touch and the icons, or touch the statues and kiss them, kiss your hand, or actually kiss the actual statue, because the statue or the icon is the representation, is that saint or that the angel. It's kind of like you're kind of almost not touching heaven, but touching that person. You're like you grab a parent would grab an image of their child, the picture of their child, kiss the picture, or hug the picture. Your intention is the child. Your intention is that person, or a person holding the dead parent's picture and kissing it and hugging it. It's the same idea. Now you're doing that for the saints. So that kind of puts you into kind of like contact with the divine, with the sacred, with the saints. So that another thing we should actually encourage people is to light candles, to actually touch the statue if possible, if it's not behind an altar rail or something, to kiss the statue, kiss your hand after touching the statue, things like that. So let's continue here. So, and then don't treat the kids like they're stupid. Oh, kids, now we're going to talk with an adult sermon. So kids, go to your little playroom and you're going to have a mini sermon. It doesn't matter. Kids will understand. They can go and ask their parents. Their parents can explain it to them later. There's no point in shipping them downstairs or wherever they take the kids these days. Anyways, so children must adhere to the same rules as adults. No talking, no walking, no running around the church. It's forbidden to speak to children out loud. Of course, during the liturgy in the church. To push them or to lecture them while the service already is in progress. Because that's the most important thing. What's happening there is the divine service, or the divine sacrifice, as the liturgy of St. John Chrysostom says. We would say the sacrifice of the Mass, or sacrifice of the altar. It is the other one, is the divine sacrifice. It is offered by divinity to divinity, Jesus to the Father. It is best to explain as much as possible at home, so that in the church, all that is left is a quiet reminder. So the kids, remember. You can whisper, guide them. Oh, here you kneel. Oh. And that, so if the kids are kind of understand, it's the kids go to church from their babies, and then in the house you educate them, make them understand What does that mean? Why do we do this? I remember when I was a kid, again, as I was going to this church, it was called Our Lady of Fatima, actually, by the Chaldeans. And they had various statues, of course, and St. George. St. George is big time in the Middle East, on his horse with the slaying the dragon. And then there's the Our Lady of Fatima behind this kind of glass thing, and people would take coins and stick it on the glass, and they had, of course, kneelers with prayers to Mary. So we teach the kids. So after Mass, we'd go light candles, and so I was trained like that by my mother, basically, because my dad sometimes had to work, because in the Middle East, Sunday was not a day of holiday. It was Friday for the Muslim holiday, and that's it. Other than that, we don't care if you're a Christian, you go to work. So anyways, children should try to listen attentively to the service. So this is very important. Again, the kids, again, if it's a boring service, like your typical Novus Ordo regular Mass, you don't feel anything special, anything divine, anything otherworldly, you'll get bored, you'll get fidgety, you'll get annoyed. Years and years and years ago, I took my nephew and niece to the traditional rite, the traditional Latin rite. They were quite young. The boy was, maybe 2 years old, 3 years old, and his sister was a year or two older. So maybe a bit older than that, something around that age. But for like 2 hours, hour and 45 minutes, they both sat very quietly. And when the time to come kneel, they don't understand anything. So she would tell her brother, kneel, sit up. So they were guiding each other to follow. And but then I would go to them to their regular church Mass. And they couldn't sit still. They're fidgeting, moving. They have to have their iPad. They have to have like some toys. The world of difference, the actual liturgy, the atmosphere, the feel makes a world of difference to little children. You dump things down. You make it. It's not a play date. It's not. You change. The church is meant to be. You're entering heaven, basically. Okay, so. Children to try to listen attentively to the service and cross themselves slowly and reverently. Again, it's like, no, they have to cross themselves slowly and reverently. And I've noticed, which is kind of weird to me, I've noticed some people, I can't remember at the traditional Roman rite or other places, but I've noticed in several places, some people would cross themselves with the left hand. This is a no-no, and it's a big no-no. In the ancient church, the left symbolizes evil. So you're crossing out yourself with the left. That's not a good thing. So even when we're crossing themselves, we're going from the left to the right in the Latins, like the Roman Catholics, and the Oriental Orthodox. Again, the symbolism is, again, going from darkness to light. And the word left in Latin matches the word for evil as well. So people to cross themselves with the left, this is a big no-no. And slowly, children are not allowed to eat in the church. Yes, they're not allowed to eat in the church. You teach them to eat in the church, you desacralize the experience. And something important is happening. You're not sitting there eating. You're paying attention. You're following. They could have eaten before coming to church since they're small children. If a small child begins to cry, it is best to take them out immediately. Yeah, if they start to cry a bit and they stop, fine. But if they wah, you're disturbing everybody and even the priest while he's trying to actually pray the liturgy. He can't concentrate. Children under children under 7 receive communion without confession or special preparation. So which tells you that children above 7 and adults do have to go to confession and preparation before communion for the old ritualists, the old believers. That's why, yeah, they do have a big, I think, Saturday night kind of a preparation and confession of sins to prepare them for Sunday. And of course, this is again under 7, the age of reason, as we might say in the West. So they're not really aware of sins. They're little children. So under 7, they don't need to do any confession, and they receive communion because in the East, Eastern Orthodox and Oriental Orthodox do give children. When you're baptized, you get baptism, confirmation, and Eucharist all at the same time. In the West, from the earliest ages, you got baptism. Confirmation was done by the bishop, pretty soon, not until you're like 12 or 13. This is kind of an innovation, actually. And then after a bit of time, a bit older, you got communion. And actually, until Pius X, in the Roman Catholic Church, confirmation was always conferred before communion because this is the correct order. Baptism, confirmation, communion. That's the correct order. But since Pius X wanted people to receive communion earlier because it became too strict for some weird reason, preventing people from the bread of life, that kids were having their first communion at 14 or something. So when he pushed it back to 7, of course, confirmation say was 12 and communion was 14. So now when he get people to receive a communion at 7 or 8, confirmation, the order was reversed now. Confirmation became after Holy Communion, which is a reversal of the natural order received from the apostles. So, there are two different thought patterns here about, they're under 7, they can't distinguish the body of Christ, they don't understand, so we can't give them Holy Communion. They need to recognize at least basically that this is Jesus Christ. So that's one way of thought, which I agree and disagree at the same time, because you tell children anything, they believe in Santa Claus. They believe in the tooth fairy. You tell them this is Jesus Christ, they will believe this is Jesus Christ. Truly. So there is like the age of reason stuff. The other thing is, maybe in the East we will tell you, well, this is the bread of life. This is the bread of angels. So you're telling me to starve my child from the bread of life? He's already baptized and confirmed. So because he's intellectually not mature enough to distinguish scholastically that this is the body, blood, soul, and divinity of Jesus Christ, so I'm going to deprive him of his maker, of the one who nourishes his soul and body. Again, that's a very strong argument for very early communion, actually, because children understand. And we gotta, in the West, in the Roman Rite, return to the correct order of confirmation and then communion. And of course, this tradition comes immediately, the triple initiation rites, which is baptism, confirmation, and communion, from the early church. Why? Because most of the early believers were adults. They immediately, you baptize the adult, you confirm the adult, and give them the Holy Eucharist right away, all the triple initiation rites, triple initiation sacraments. All right. Let's see here. Okay, so children under 7, they don't need to go to confession or any special preparation. They can just receive communion. Again, remember, communion is body and blood. And I think the old ritualists, the old believers do a triple. They take a little spoon, and I think they have the sacred body in the chalice, I believe. And then it's a triple, not just once, but a triple once, twice, three times. Of course, for children, babies, it'll be very, very little. But anyways, there's still something. And it's a body and the blood. Oh, you're giving alcohol to children? Yes, because it's the divine blood of Jesus Christ. Okay. Generally, it is sufficient for them, so for the kids under 7, to come to the morning service on an empty stomach. So even small children. This is the ancient discipline, even in the West, and if you train your child to empty stomach, it doesn't tell you like they don't eat from midnight. No, they could have had something, very, very early or late last night. So they get used to, since they're little children, oh, we don't eat before church. We don't drink before church. They get used to it. It's not something weird and new. And on a personal note, I remember my great-grandmother, who was born in Aleppo, Syria. And then she was living in Sudan. And anyways, so I remember she had this kind of metallic or metal cup. I still remember the color, kind of a pinkish, purplish color. And she maintained the discipline. She would fill her water, her cup with water, put it in the fridge, and eat nothing, drink nothing. After the Mass liturgy is over, when she comes back home, opens the fridge, first thing she does, her ice cold water in her metal cup, drinks it. So an old woman did that. Children, because it is something you get used to. You got to teach kids young. So while breastfeeding infants are permitted to eat before the liturgy, as they're babies, however, care should be taken to ensure that the child sleeps before communion, because you really don't want them to be yelling and screaming and wailing in the church. It happens that infants burp after receiving communion. It is important. Again, this shows you again the reverence for the sacred body and blood. It is important to thoroughly wipe off any excess from their clothing and burn the napkin. I'm going to comment on this. I'm just going to read it first. The best option is also to burn any clothing that may contain particles of the consumed body and blood of Christ. As a last resort, if you really don't want to burn the clothing, you can wash the clothing in a clean running body of water or over a clean vessel and pour the water into a holy well at the church, and only then wash it. So basically get rid of any particles, any precious blood, any sacred host, anything off of the clothing in this running water in a completely, and then take that water pour it into the holy well, and then you can wash your clothing. This is actually the exact same preparation done by the Catholic Church in case you have spilt wine, the sacred blood. If it got spilt, it is purificators or cloths are used to remove the spilt blood, and then again they are washed and cleaned or soaked in water, and that water is disposed of in something called the sacrarium. So if the precious blood is spilled, it's absorbed using the purificator, so the linen cloths, and then the area is washed with water and is poured into the sacrarium, a special sink in the sacristy that leads directly to the earth. It's kind of like a well, goes directly to the earth. not the sewer. So it says if no sacrarium is available, the water should be poured directly onto the ground. So same thing with the sacred host. If the host falls on the ground, it's consumed. And if it is not possible to consume it because it's soiled or something, again, it says it must be dissolved in water until it no longer has the appearance of bread. Once dissolved, the water is poured into the sacrarium again, or onto the earth if no sacrarium exists. And it says older rubrics of Pius V, the Defectibus, it says sanctions burning with ashes and washing liquids disposed of in the sacrarium for items like flies or other objects that contaminate the chalice and after the consecration. So even burning it and dumping it into the ground. This is the same practice of the Catholic Church, traditional practice, and the old believers. I'm pretty sure the other Orthodox have the same type of practices. Maybe not as strict, not as adhering to tradition as the old believers or ritualists, but they do. So let's see. Let me see. I wrote some notes here. I wanted to. Let's see here. Yeah, so I mentioned fasting. So fasting is very important. Like, we got to restore the fast. You don't expect, well, please restore the fast. You restore it to yourself. You restore it for yourself. I can't do the 12 hours, fine. Maybe do 3 hours, like Pius 12 said. And you drink the water. Maybe after a month or two, you don't even drink water for 3 hours before Mass. And after you succeed in that, then try to push it further, 5 hours, 6 hours, and then go back to the tradition of from midnight before the Mass, you don't eat or drink anything. And you'll find your body acclimates. Same goes with the Easter fast, which is traditionally the Lenten fast. Traditionally is no food or drink all day, except water, and one meal a day only, with no cheese, no dairy, no eggs, no meat. That's the tradition. All 40 days, from Ash Wednesday up to and including Holy Saturday. That's the tradition. You break your fast Easter Sunday. So that's why you get the color eggs, because we haven't eaten eggs for 40, 50 days. That's what makes them special, on Easter Sunday. Anyways, so let's see, anything else we wanted to mention here. Yeah, I mean, this is, again, this emphasis on the children is to remind them that as Jesus himself said, my house is a house of prayer, not a den of thieves, not a house of commerce, not a house of jokes, not a house of entertainment. No, it's a house of prayer and sacrifice. All right, couple more things, and we're done. Now, this is a personal thing. It's a personal thing. I know it's just my stupid opinion, but it's a personal thing. I guess because, again, when I was a child, this is how I was taught by my mom to consume the Eucharist. So it affected me. So, for example, when I was taught, when you receive the host, or if you receive the bread dipped into the blood, and you receive it, you don't chew it. You don't take it and you go. No, you just, if it's a host, or even if it's the bread dipped into the body dipped into the blood, you receive it, you just leave it for a few seconds on your tongue, it dissolves, and then you just swallow it. That gives you actually some time to be in contact, in a sense, with Jesus incarnate, his glorified body, blood, soul, and divinity. He's sitting there until it dissolves, and then you swallow. I don't need to chew. I don't need to do like that. This is, I don't know. I find it kind of, I don't know. I just don't like it. I don't know. Probably there's no rules for that, but it just for me, I find it kind of irreverent. Kind of like I'm crushing Christ with my teeth. I can just keep my mouth closed, and as the prayer of the liturgy we're saying, he says, we say in the traditional Roman Rite, you who humbled yourself to share in our humanity through this Eucharist, this sacrament, grant us the honor, privilege of being joined to your divinity. So to be divinized, we are eating God. We are consuming the divine Lamb. So I think even by the way you swallow and a bit more reverence for yourself, you're maintaining contact with Jesus. The longer there's still contact with God himself in your mouth until finally you swallow. I mean, this is a personal thing. Listen. And one little kind of anecdote, as I mentioned previously, there's a lot of new people coming to the traditional Roman Rite where I live. And I've noticed this lady, maybe saw her maybe 4 times or 4 Sundays or something like that, 4 or 5 Sundays. Like, oh, somebody new. You see always new people. I mean, vast majority, I have no idea who they are anymore. It used to be the old clique, the old regulars. Anyways, so this lady, I've noticed her 4 or 5 times. And seems to be very happy to be at the traditional liturgy. I don't know. So she, yesterday, went to Holy Communion. It was Sunday, so today is Monday. I'm recording this video. What I noticed was when she received Holy Communion, which I found kind of unique and quite actually inspiring. So, you know how you are, even if you're going to the traditional liturgy, you kneel, you receive the host on your tongue, like babes receiving the food from their parents, like every single rite, from the Eastern Orthodox to the Oriental Orthodox to the Nestorians to everybody. Only the priest handles the sacred object, sacred body and blood, and he's the only one who gives it out. And the people don't touch, they just receive. So, anyways, normally you receive it, you get up if you're kneeling, you turn to the right and go back to your aisle. And yesterday, well, I was kind of up front in the church. I received the Holy Eucharist. I was kneeling. And then when you're done, you're just kind of, just looking at the people receiving the Eucharist and, of course, thanking God and all that stuff. I noticed, she just knelt, whatever. She took the Eucharist, received the Eucharist, stood up, and she didn't just kind of turn around and walk back. No, she kind of did not want to give her back to God, did not want to give her back to, is it my imagination? I don't think so. To the priest with the host who's distributing the body of the Lord. So at the altar rail, so she stood up and she kind of continued walking to the right, kind of still facing the altar rail. Then finally she turned around and went down the aisle. So she did not give her back or her side to God incarnate. I found that very, very, very inspirational. And that's another thing why when you have Mass facing the people, you're actually having Mass with your back to God. Because normally, most places, the tabernacle is behind the priest. So the priest offering sacrifice is giving his back to the Almighty Lord Jesus Christ, his King in the tabernacle. He's giving his back to his King and facing the people when he should be facing his Lord and Master and God in the sacred tabernacle. Anyways, that is basically the video for today. So, as I said, this is quite a good article, very short article, a good reminder for we have to teach the little children how this is a sacred place, this is a special place, this is a holy place. It is not your home. It is not your playroom. It is not your buddy's, you know, house. It is God's house. It is different. It is unique. It is special. We don't do what we do in the house here. Here is the house of God. We behave differently. We behave the best we can behave. We listen to the chant. We don't understand, it's okay. They're singing in Old Slavonic, so these kids don't understand what is being said pretty much, but they know it is special. It is magic. And this is how you build the faith in the people. And yeah, so that's basically all I want to share with you today. Children in the temple, children in the house of God, children at church. And actually, what goes for children goes doubly for the adults. So no more adults, especially in so-called traditionalist adults, with water bottles guzzling their water during Mass. What is that? What is that? Anyways, that's it. That's all. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Please like, subscribe, share, put the notification bell, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.